Welcome to Reading Week. I am so excited for this to finally get here. I absolutely love teaching reading. I really hope this isn't your only chance to be able to take classes that are going to be teaching you strategies to teach learning. This is going to be like a quick run through. There's no way you can learn the whole thing in 1 week, but it's one of those things that's going to take time, and hopefully you take some classes that are going to be learning how to teach students to read. It's absolutely fascinating. So the idea that we're going to be talking about this week is the learning to read and then reading to learn. There's a definite switch. And the switch generally happens around 3rd grade. So many things change from that 2nd grade curriculum to that 3rd grade curriculum. We're going from phonics in 2nd grade to spelling in 3rd grade. We're going from maybe worksheets type of learning in 2nd grade to textbooks in 3rd grade. And the amount of reading that a student needs to do in 3rd grade is more background knowledge based. We're adding things to the back of their mind to kind of pull from later on. We're not actually teaching reading anymore in 3rd grade. So if a student isn't reading at 3rd grade level before they get to 3rd grade, that's where we see a lot of extra help needing to come in to help that. So when we're thinking about learning to read and then switching from learning to read and then reading to learn, there is a whole different chunk of skills that go into each one of these. So reading to learn is more of the 3rd grade and up, and we're talking about learning to read is 3rd grade and below. So learning to read, we really have to look at early literacy concepts, like concepts of print, like D's, B's, P's, Q's. What do they all have in common? Why are they different? What sounds do they make? The phonemic awareness, that's all the sounds, the blends, the digraphs, decoding skills, learning to take words apart and then build them back together, assessing word meaning, and then sentence integration. Those are all things that we're going to be doing from pre-K to 3rd grade. And 2nd grade is kind of the tipping point on there. Either you get it at 2nd grade and you're off to the races in 3rd grade, or we need to go back and remediate some of those building blocks that we've missed. So then once we get to 3rd grade, we are reading to learn. That's when the comprehension comes into play. But if that prior knowledge is not there and we don't have the background building skills to build up to that reading comprehension, it's going to be very, very difficult for children to learn. So once students do read to learn, we are going to talk about a whole different kind of toolkit full of things they need to know how to do. They have to make inferencings and monitor their reading and ask questions while they're reading and make connections while they read and bring in their background knowledge. It gets to be quite a bit. Let's look at this quote. Children are made readers on the laps of their parents. Do you believe that? Do you believe that what we do as parents for our children make a big difference in reading? The answer is absolutely yes. Absolutely yes. There's a book out here called Reading Magic by Mem Box, and it is one of the quick reads in on learning how to read. It's basically teaching students how to read without teaching students how to read. It's making them love the word and the print. It starts from day one. When babies and small children are introduced to books and the touching and the feeling of the books and the concept of print and just the flipping of the page and the tracking of the words and the left to right and then the background knowledge, it's irreplaceable what that can be done. So if you have a student who has not had that background knowledge prior coming to kindergarten or pre-K, they are already behind in reading. And that sounds kind of severe, but it's kind of the truth. If you are in the Billings area, I'm sure you've heard on the news, they have the library at Billings is the 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten campaign. And the reason why they're doing that is to increase literacy skills of students who are pre-K. And if you have any interest in that, it's a great thing to Google, get in some research on that. But the amount of background knowledge, language concepts, the print concepts, the understanding of story, narration, language, speech, it's amazing what just reading to kids will do for their vocabulary and on up. So when we're talking about the early exposure of reading to children, it is a huge predictor of success in school. So how much a student knows about reading and language before they come to kindergarten will really predict how that student will do in school. So studies have shown by the age 5, language predicts age 7 in reading. So if the child has a lot of background knowledge in language and how the world works, speech world works, they will be better readers by the age of 7. By the age of 7, their reading ability predicts high school achievement. You really wouldn't think so, but that's the honest truth, because if the child hasn't figured out the reading and the kind of the cadence of how reading works by the age of 7, they're already going to be behind. And when I say behind, I don't mean that it's like a detrimental thing that you can't catch up, but most likely it's harder to catch up for a student who has not been read to and had that background knowledge, as if somebody who didn't. When I taught at a school back in the early 2000s, we had a contest, not really a contest, but like kind of a survey. The students were to go home and count how many books they had at home. Well, to my surprise, some of the students came back and they had 5. They had 10. And then I had some students come back and said 100 plus. They quit counting at 200. And then if you look at just the amount of literature is in those homes, it was really a great correlation to which student was doing well in school, which student was not doing well in school, whose parents were reading to them at home, or guardian or grandparents or whoever. They had some reader at home helping them out to those who did not. And it was startling the difference that it made. Here's another quote I'd like you to think about. Babies are born with the instinct to speak, the way spiders are born with the instinct to spin webs. You don't need to train babies to speak, they just do. But reading is different. So, reading, there are skills used in reading that are not used in speech. So if you think about, there's the double looping effect. And I've heard it called this way before because if your eyes see the print, so it's going in your eyes, they see the print, your mind is thinking of the word, you are saying the word, you are hearing the word, you are understanding the word. So you are seeing, thinking, saying, hearing, understanding of a word every single time a student is reading a word for literature, like in reading. So yes, it's definitely different than speaking. Speaking is just like a one-way track. It's just coming from the thought out your mouth. Whereas reading is like coming in through the eyes, to the brain, to the mouth, to the ears, to the brain, you're hearing. It makes a double loop effect. This really is like the fast-forward version of teaching students to read, so I truly, truly hope you get a chance to take a class on teaching reading. But learning how to read, we have the pre-reading, we have phonetic awareness, phonics, and decoding. Those are the basic steps from building like the reading skills. So pre-reading, students have to know the concept of print, meaning that there's something, a letter is going to make a sound, which is going to make a meaning, which is going to make part of a sentence. And understanding that the print in the page, the printed page in spoken language, there's a correspondence between the two. The phonemic awareness is like how the sounds of the word are strung together and how every letter makes a different sound, but if you pair that letter with another letter, they make a different sound. Decoding is when students sometimes are told to sound the word out. So they must know that there's a specific sound to every print and every combination of print, and it each has meaning. So when we start with the smallest building blocks of language up until reading comprehension, we are starting at the bottom up, so the smallest and then building up. And I know you've heard that word before because we talked about it last week in math. Same idea. So we have to know those basic principles of reading and written text so the student can climb up the ladder, like go up the steps. We're going to get a little bit more. So these are like the letters and the sounds and the words and the phrases and the sentences. So every student needs to have these word attack skills. Means they're going to take a word and then break it apart to what they know. Do they know what the sound of each letter makes? Do they know what the combination makes? Have they seen that before? Can they stretch it out? Can they sound it out? And that's the basic building blocks of looking at print. And the more if you have a chance to research some of this, like how students learn to read, it truly is a miracle that any of us know how to read because it is a very difficult and a very complex process. So it's the practice that we need to do all the time with our students and our children. We start them off young and we just keep going and going and building and building and building. But if we go back to that thing where we're talking about how many words or how many books a student needs to know before going to kindergarten or need to have been exposed to before kindergarten. If those building blocks are not there and they don't get those building blocks, then they're going to be, lost. I was taking a reading class one time. It's called diagnostic reading. And one of my professors said, you should think about text per year per thousands for each child. So in the kindergarten age group, the child should be seeing up to 1,000 words a day. Seeing 1,000 words a day. I thought that was astronomically too many, but then I kind of thought about, okay, look at all the stuff they see on TV. They see driving, they see in the car, they see mom read, they see dad's iPhone. They have all these different things. They can see print. Now, understanding that each one of those print words means something, that's going to be the correlation. And so then it would just increase as each year goes on. So the first graders would be 1,000 to 2,000 words a day. Second graders, 2,000 to 3,000, 3,000 to 4,000. You get the idea. So if what are you guys in 14th grade now? How many words a day are you supposed to be looking at? But then you think about it. If you read some of the things that we're asking you to read, your textbooks every day, you are getting probably millions of words a day. But if we didn't have that background knowledge, if we didn't know the print, we didn't know the print concepts, we didn't know the phonemic awareness, we didn't know that alphabet going backwards, we could never get to where you are today. And then we look at a poem kind of like this, and we look at the words that are being highlighted. The no, go, so, ho. To? What does that do? Bone, cone, lone, tone, done? So you can understand that it's very tricky learning the English language. So if we give the students like the chunks of words that they know, the phonemic awareness, we know what the N says, we know what the O says, we know what the G says, we know what the S says, but then we change it a little bit. So that's why we have to have almost two different types of reading curriculum to help our students out.